how did it become you ended up this kind of, dare I say it, punchbag for the show?
Exactly. So I think looking back on it for us, see, we even watched, because we had to find footage for stuff recently, but when I look back on us, we were so naive, see, at that age as well, like,
So what age were you?
We were actually 19 and 20 at the time,
wow.
so we had been doing gigs and stuff like that, but we were nowhere near ready for that kind of like exposure and stuff like that. But we look back and we actually look at the TV's footage, I can actually see where Simon Cowell's coming from, you know, that way. It was like we were kind of all over the punching bags. We were one of the weaker singers on the show at that stage, you know, that way. So
and the funny thing about it was, during the audition stages, and we even watched them back, completely different.
Yeah.
It's like, as soon as like you've no training whatsoever, and then there's 5-6 different cameras on you, that was a different ball
it was
game.
the nerves for us.
It was nerves. So when you can sing and then you can't sing because you're shaking, that's what happened. But then what happened was, obviously Simon Cowell would then hammer us every week, and that became our role, but it didn't help us out really, you know.
It made it worse.
It made you more nervous.
What did you used to say before you went on, ready for a fight, boys?
Aye,
Stuff like that, yeah.
Exactly, stuff like that. He would come backstage and talk. I think his ambition was for us to answer him back a lot more, but us being like Scottish and all that, you're always kind of a bit more modest. I think the Scots are a lot more modest, so we kind of just kind of held our tongue. Exactly, you got that fiery, but you wanted more
so you
fire.
were smiling. I'm here with Brian and Craig. Excellent. Now, your mentor from the show was Louis Walsh.
Yeah.
He's been back in the news recently with the documentary. What's it called?
No Matter What, Boyzone, No Matter What.
Right, it's from his time managing Boyzone.
Yeah.
He's been getting a bit of a kicking publicly for
Seen
it.
that as well.
Brian McFadden saying, I think he used to call him fat or blow his cheeks out, all that kind of stuff. But your experience with him, now he never actually took you on officially, did he, after the show? He turned that down, if you like. Well, what was your experience?
Again, for us, we have, now looking back on it, we don't have that much time with Louis Walsh, probably the best part of a year, wouldn't it be? But I've got to say, from our point, we'd never seen that side of him. I mean, I've only watched one of those episodes of that documentary, but he's coming across really harsh and stuff. And listen, at that level, I think, talking about Simon Cowell and all these back in that day, Sharon Osbourne, it was brutal, you know what I mean? Back in the day, it was absolutely brutal. For us, personally, with Louis Walsh, he was hard on us to the point he would get his point across. And
rightly so, because he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, but at the same time, he wasn't abusive or anything like that you kind of hear on these documentaries. To us, anyway, in that point.
And tell us, so he didn't have any official involvement with you, but he helped you.
Yeah, he did. So basically, after the X Factor, you're still signed to a management company, and even Psycho record deals with Simon Cowell. But so Louis at that point, he's just there for the show, and he could walk away. But even during the show, he would come round to the house wherever he is, and he would come and see us every single week, maybe twice a week, to make sure how we getting on, how you feeling, because he knew it was hard on us, you know. But he was there. The only person you ever saw was Louis Walsh. He would come round to see us and his acts, to see how you're getting on. But then after the show, once everything's done, Louis really got nothing to do at that point. But for us, we kept in touch, and he got us on the Westlife tours for borderline, was it 3 years? We did the Westlife.
Aye, it was great.
And then massive tours, right?
Listen, 10,000 folk in full UK arenas.
And the reception to you?
Amazing. And again, we had that support, because
you're just coming off the back of telly as well.
It's a lot of money for that support slot, but we actually had to pay, it was something like 60 quid, just pay the sound guys, the light guys, that's it, on every gig, and it was like great promotion for us. So we had, again, we're very thankful for that. He actually took us to Ireland to audition for we didn't actually do the audition, but to feel out this American band. It's, I think they're called Celtic Thunder now. That's what they ended up being. But he thought we would be perfect because we played the fiddle, the accordion, all that stuff. He thought it'd be perfect. He put us forward for that as well. We a lot of opportunities to Louis Walsh.
It was great. And even on the show, it's my birthday, and he'd arranged for a middle of London big restaurant, all done with about 20 of us, all your friends, and he paid for it all, got you gifts and stuff, and it was just a nice thing to do, and we kept in touch for years after it. And that's the funny thing. Like, even
never expected anything back out of it.
You were always his number was there. You had a number for his office and him, but if you called Louis, he would answer. You know, it was one of those things. He was there. He wasn't there. I need to speak to my PA or arrange a meeting or whatever. And he's a busy guy.
I always wondered with that, because later years people would get asked, you know, do you actually have the number for your mentor Cheryl Cole or anything like that? And they never even had the numbers, right?
Like Sharon Osbourne, you had to phone her LA office, and then Simon Cowell, same thing. They'd all office and they would get back to the guys, but for us it'd be like, there's +3, whatever the Irish number was, just phone Louis' mobile and he'd pick up straight away.
It's funny, you've not maybe seen all the whole Boyzone thing, but one thing that I just thought it was quite funny was, they were raging about saying that Louis wasn't on tour with them and stuff, and I'm thinking like, well, it was that kind of thing. They're really attacking him for that.
Yeah.
They've been not on tour, but it's like, well, Louis' job isn't to be on. That's what
That's
tour.
right.
That's
Yeah, no, exactly.
So obviously
they're making the deal.
but it's one you know, it's like yourself. The way programs are edited, and then the way that the public perceive them might be a bad thing, but that's a completely normal thing. Like Louis' job is to carve and shape your career from his office, his contacts. He's not to be there day to day. That's all different.
To get your rider organised.
So it's things like that.
And of course, they made all these guys a lot of money.
Tons of money,
sure.
100%. I always remember, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Even when we're signed to a contract with X Factor, at any point you can leave.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it. Yeah. You know, so it's that kind of thing that you
it's
don't
always
do
the
it.
carrot, isn't it? You think if I leave, I'm going to miss out on that, so you just keep going. But I do agree. Like back then, things were a lot more brutal, and that includes us 20 years ago. It was like you could not get away with the stuff back then, or now that you could do back then. So we feel that as well for sure.
You've been gigging since, when did you actually start gigging before the X Factor?
Kids were actually
12 and
kids.
13 or something.
12 and 13 year olds, so like in the 1990s, I'm sure probably, but it's a long time.
But still going, as I said, you got your tour that you're midway through this now.
Yeah.
But you're also on the cruise circuit, but not just any old cruise circuit. Some really nice ships.
See, now I think it's all the years we went away. I think that's why people think we've not been doing much. We have been overseas for probably 15 years, that way, but. For us, it's like, see the cruises, you turn up, you go for like a 1 week cruise, you're required to do 2 45-minute spots a week, not a night, just for a week, and that's it. So you're actually a full guest. The time's your own. If you go to the gym, like, I mean, they're all inclusive, a lot of them as well, so we have a good time on them.
Where have you been?
We've been all over the world, to Australia, to Antarctica, to Alaska.
Yeah, came back from Peru on the last one. It was Colombia to Peru was the last one in January there. So
we've seen, and obviously because your daytime is completely free, we've explored as much as we can.
Wow,
and we did that believe it or not, we've been doing that for 16 years, so the first 6 you hammer every tour excursion.
You've done them all.
You see, and then you start going to the gym after that because you've done it.
Tell us, a lot of maybe these American passengers wouldn't have heard you at all.
That's it.
But they would appreciate the Scots folksy type thing.
And I think that's exactly. I'm talking about the X Factor again. It's like you cannot live off the X Factor for 20 years. I mean, you can get that bit of a boost and stuff, but. At the end of the day, you have to do something that's going to please people for that amount of time. So for us, it's the Celtic music for sure. So we get the accordion and fiddle out. We might do stuff like Simon and Garfunkel, and they do the harmonies, and they love all that. Do you know what I mean? So it's putting a show together that appeals to everybody in the world, not just the UK.
And the thing with the cruise ships, it's different to touring is. They haven't paid a ticket.
They can go up
so
and
they
leave.
can walk out any point.
I was going to say, do you ever get anyone saying, you know, for me, you're out?
You have just English. No, I'm joking.
You have to create a show that is going to hit somebody, because you could be sometimes, if you're on like celebrity cruises, it could be Mexican, Spanish, American. So there's got to be something that people can at least relate to. Otherwise, they will walk. So it's like, it's been good.
We think that the musicianship's the biggest thing for us. If you can play something well, I'm good on the fiddle, Brian's great in the accordion, piano, etc.
Appreciate it.
That's what people like. They like to see that. Do you know what I mean?
And so, guys, if you're to look back and everything, right, and as I said, the X Factor, but you didn't win it, and then you didn't do this, you didn't do that. But you guys, obviously, that was you wouldn't be doing this, would you?
No. That's the thing. I think it was a kick up the backside. See, coming off that shot, although we got hammered every week, it kind of made us think we do need to do better here. Like, we were singers before. Like, I was a singer, you never really sang much, so I would sing and Brian would just do guitar in the background. So it did open up this whole kind of, if we work at this, you can have a career at it, that way. So it was a kick up the backside. That's the only way to look at it.
And then we did blooming work hard after.
We
really did.
We're still working hard. I think we still get complaints for the wife about how hard we're working, but at the same time, that's life. We enjoy it still, that way. So as much as we've got other things going, it's like music is still our passion and what we want to do.
That's what's refreshing about the tour, because we never even thought about doing that at all, because we get comfortable. You just fly out, do a gig, and it's great. You don't even worry about crew or anything. Everything's there, bands, everything's all there. But when you're touring again, that's hard work again. It is hard work, but we are so surprised that first of all the shows are selling, but secondly we're actually enjoying it. Because that was the reason we stopped it.
More now.
Definitely, I think also was surprised.
That's amazing.
See, my gauge of this was like 20 years ago after the X Factor. We did 2 nights at the Gaiety, which is our hometown. Right? So it's like holds about 500 each night. sold out the Gaiety, and we've just sold out the Gaiety last weekend there again 20 years later, and it's like 2 nights as well, and you're like, how is that travel for so long? Exactly, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's probably went like that, took a massive dip, we went away, but now we've been back for about 2 or 3 years. It's building up again, so
and
we're
happy to build it up, you know, it's everybody that comes, we're grateful, and
not every show's going to sell out, but
we're all having a good time
like,
together, and people are enjoying the show, and it's like, well, if we can keep building that every year, then that's good. Because a wee girl now as well, 3.5.
Can't be away in the ships all the time.
Enjoy myself, you know.
So when you, if you had a couple of young lads from Ayrshire came to you and said they were getting on music wise, would you impart? What's the kind of thing you would impart to them?
Brian gets it a lot for even your studio. Brian's got his own studio now, so you. It's funny. Brian now becomes he's not advising, but you get young kids in like who are like starting out in their careers,
and young bands and different people and singer-songwriters. But the thing is, like, you just try and pass on what you've learned, the same as like your old managers, whatever. You're just sharing experiences and you're trying to guide people, but at the end of the day they're going to have their own choices and their own things, but you're just trying to give them the ups and the cons, the pros, all the
things.
I think
having a thick skin is probably the one bit of advice I would get on, because even I had an interview with the Stereophonics a few years ago, and we always thought one of the coolest bands out there. We were obviously getting hammered all the time, but
you'd want to be there, right?
Exactly. I heard one of them saying, like, we got all this abuse online, like trolls and all that stuff. See if a band like them gets it, like everybody gets, whether you're a sportsman, whether you're a musician, everyone
Aren't you
gets
just glad social media wasn't around when you
honestly,
people
just came out, people was there, so we had a little like,
you got a wee bit of it, didn't you?
Tiny bit, but that, you only see the good side in people now. Facebook, you get everything, you know, that way. So
it's hard. It is hard, but again, everybody's got that decision. If you want to be in the public eye, you've got to expect that, and that's the thing.
For every one bad comment, you've got 100 great folk that love what you do. So I think you've just got to accept.
Did it hurt though at the time?
100%. Yeah, like when you're sitting on the TV and you're looking across at the monitor, and it was ITV2 or something, and all this stuff scrolling. And bear in mind,
actually, because you did ITV2,
after the show.
So was it the extra factor?
That's right.
So you did the extra factor, and then you'll be getting a kicking in that as well.
And it's like
take a dominant on it or something.
Ben Shepherd, you were too busy. They were trying to interview you, but you're too busy looking over there and seeing all the comments, going, "Why are they even on this show? The MacDonalds were terrible tonight."
The one was great.
But bear in mind, if all these messages come through, the producers are putting them on. And it's not as if they could have kept that off, but it's not. So
it's a definite agenda for sure.
You go to your room that night and you're like, oh my god, why are we even here? And again, but then you sit down together as brothers and you go, well, listen, you know, it's just need to keep going and just doing it, and you could have went up the road any time, really. But
and maybe if you'd been by yourself, you would have
maybe
100% kept going. But you guys are still in music. 19, nearly 20 years later. You've obviously done pretty well out of it.
Yeah, it's been great.
But from a couple of naive young guys, you got right management at the right time.
I think for us, everything's a learning curve. So coming off of that show, you expect, you know, just what we talked about earlier, the glamour of it all kind of quickly fades, because it's like you're no longer having everyone driving you about everywhere. You're out on your own. You're just like, right. So we came back up to Scotland. We had kind of offers in London, and with our management contract with London at the time, but
which were great as well.
They were great. You can't fault them, but we felt they were it was too big for us down there. It was like we were never going to be successful in London. So we came back to Scotland, managed to negotiate a deal with a management company in Scotland, the Music Kitchen they were called, and they just put everything into us, and they actually they made our career from that very beginning. So like our first album was it's like a Scottish album. It went on the UK as a full sale, but they couldn't get it in, for example, like Tesco in England or Carlisle or something north of the border, but they got us a #1 album in Scotland. We outsold the Proclaimers and the week of release, stuff like that. You're thinking, we took that for granted at the time, but looking back on it, is the best decision we ever made was to come back to Scotland.
And it was number 18 in the UK
on Scottish sales alone. It's crazy.
So you guys were with a small independent, Gordon Campbell, who I know well, and then obviously Stuart Woody Wood from Bay City Rollers. Ironically, I think the last song you ever sang was Shang-a-Lang on X Factor. Am I correct with that?
You kicked out that.
You kicked out that exactly. And I remember Simon actually quite nicely said, "Okay, I think that's about as far as you've come." Right? I remember he said something like that, wasn't it? You know. But ironically, you ended up working with Woody, right?
And what a guy as well. Like for us, like look at his experience. I mean, talking about.
But that was a bitter experience he'd had.
Definitely, and getting hammered as well. The Rollers are back in the day. They were the biggest band in the world at the time, you know, and it's like they went through that high, and then after it they had all the lows of the kind of court cases and all the stuff that they went through. But you see, Stuart's got all that experience. See, when you were feeling a little bit like, oh God, this is like not going the way you think it is, he's been through it all, so you had him to fall back on for advice and stuff. So
and you forget, it has been, they definitely have a better experience, but they also had phenomenal times. But I think people look at it as a better experience, but they forget the good times. They're still having the great times as well.
What Stuart's always said though is these guys were, you know, the trailblazers for guys like you come along.
100%.
Right? So there's you had this platform. This was before social media, before YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So it was, and you used it, and what was it about you both? Did you just actually start listening to what you were told? So, for example, you're going to get a bit of money from X Factor. Instead of blowing it in cars, you put it in the property.
Exactly. Again, that was going back to Gordon. That was kind of his. I mean, we never intentionally probably went to. The biggest thing we bought after the X Factor was our houses. You know what I mean? Any money we got from the X Factor tour, which was a good amount of money for 2 kids at 2021. Just what you said earlier, we didn't go and buy a Porsche or something like that. You went and we bought, I bought a 4-bed house in a nice area. Brian did the same. Like, Brian's still in this house today. I've got mine round the corner, which is, I've still got it, but it's like a holiday let now. I now live in a different house, but we just.
But you ended up building up a portfolio.
Building up a portfolio. So that was a good fallback as well, for sure. Do you know what I mean? Like all the properties. We talked about COVID as well. Like when COVID hit, musicians could not work, so we were sitting at home for 2 years, but we were fairly comfortable because we had a fallback, which we always planned on. But as you say, it's about listening to advice and taking the good advice, trying to get rid of the bad, you know.
Okay, so the MacDonald Brothers, not only did they wisely invest in property when you've got a load of, but you also put your money into liquid gold.
Yes,
we do. Yeah. Tell us first of all what size are the collections?
So I think we must have hit about maybe 400 odd bottles each. Like I think we've got. Bear in mind we've been doing this 15 years. It's just a hobby.
Tickets. How did you get tickets for you guys?
Yep, just on our websites, MacDonald Brothers, Facebook, EHP Theatres putting the shows on.
There's like a production company called EHP Theatre, but if you go into the MacDonald Brothers social media, you'll get all of it.
You'll see everything you need to see.